Sepupus, wonders of wonders. We have a brand new shiny tariff rate of 19%. I want to thank my family, my friends, professors, sepupus. Just kidding. But still, sepupus, this is a pretty big improvement. It is after the 24% that Trump dropped on us, after he later on raised it to 25%, the entire world was freaking out as he told us to build in America. I offer myself as tribute. And here we are rejoicing one after another. Congratulations Anwar Ibrahim, Tengku Zafrul, the entire team at MITI. Congratulations to all of us in Malaysia. Jokes aside though, this is actually very significant because Malaysia is very dependent on the US. I mean, the US is our largest export destination with about shipments of 198.65 billion ringgit, equivalent to about 46.58 billion US dollars. And all of those investments that you're seeing from lots of different companies. As TMX goes jet setting after jet setting, yeah, so the top source is actually the US as well, with 32.82 billion ringgit in approved investments
last year.
So yes, not really a small thing. You know what's great? Apparently we did it without compromising any red lines. Wow, truly amazing. Which means, by the way, that we didn't compromise our Bumi policy, halal certification, data sovereignty, and a whole bunch of other things which the Malaysian government deems important or crucial to our national interest. Which then raises the question, why did this happen? I mean, was it because Anwar Ibrahim was so amazing, played such a huge role in the Thailand-Cambodia ceasefire negotiation? Donald Trump finally understood the grand value of ASEAN? It's very tempting to tell ourselves beautiful stories, especially since Trump is coming over for the ASEAN summit in October. Marco Rubio is declaring that the story of the next 50 years will be written here. And there we are dancing along to the Kishore Mahbubani play Brave New ASEAN World. But I don't think that's the full story. See, when we went into this, we wanted to get rid of the US tariffs, which means we didn't actually reach our goal, and it is an improvement, and we can do better, but also there are trade-offs. For one thing, we're selling rare earths to the US right now because they are a strategic asset, and also we're accepting the US halal certification amongst other things. I think that we know a little bit of what's going on, like for example, tightening up rules on transshipment,
spending 9.5 billion US dollars on Boeing planes, which could be something that we have to think about again to evaluate whether it's actually a good decision or not.
And a whole range of other things, and hopefully the PM is going to disclose what other things were offered as compromise in Parliament. We had several months long of engagement, and I don't want to discount any of that, but I think it's good to look at things in context. For one thing, right, we're not the only country that ended up getting a 19% tariff rate. Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia now all have a 19% tariff rate. I'm sure they work very hard as well, but the fact is that it's the exact same rate, right? And I don't think that's a coincidence, because for one thing, it helps reduce the chance that you end up doing what we call intra-bloc arbitraging, basically benefiting from the price difference here as a country of origin, setting up manufacturing somewhere else just so that you can sell over to the US market.
Which relates to the transshipment I talked about earlier.
And yes, it's true that Singapore has 10% because it has a trade surplus with the US. But again, because of rules of origin and the fact that the Sing dollar is much stronger than all of the other countries'
currencies
in the region, that doesn't mean that you're going to have a push over to Singapore for manufacturing, because of a mixture of like the rules of origin, high labor costs, and a whole bunch of other things
mean it's way too expensive to manufacture in Singapore and closes a loophole.
So I don't know how much of what we got from Donald Trump came from some grand negotiation, ASEAN story, as opposed to some sort of strategy from the US as a whole for dealing with or managing ASEAN, while at the same time it manages countries like Laos and Myanmar with these 40% tariffs to kind of diplomatically leverage on that.
Or maybe he literally doesn't care.
But you know, I also want to talk about the new normal. I mean, as I mentioned before, our goal at the outset was to have no tariffs, which obviously isn't a thing. And the new normal is very much like what Senior Minister Lee Hsien Loong said at the 69th Annual Dinner of the Economic Society of Singapore, when he said that it's kind of like
50步笑百步. The person who retreated 50 steps from the battle laughs at the person who retreated 100 steps and you're worse off than me.
Like, everybody is worse off because we're now in this post-global consensus order where everybody is just kind of cowboying, abandoning the rules of the old system, brand new era. But for what it's worth, I'm sure that PMX and Tengku Zafrul worked very, very hard And double for what it's worth, I'm glad that it wasn't us that was doing the trade negotiations, because however much Fadli Shari wants to bodek Donald Trump, I think that in all likelihood we wouldn't have gotten a better trading deal, we would get a regime change. So yes, credit is due where credit is due. Good job PMX and MITI, Tengku Zafrul and everybody who was involved in this new and epic saga long beyond Turun Anwar. I do find it a little weird that there is no Instagram post or Facebook post featuring Anwar Ibrahim having a conversation with Donald Trump that goes like, I had a conversation with His Excellency Donald Trump. We had a long conversation about the Thailand-Cambodia ceasefire and had alignment on a range of different issues related to non-tariff trade barriers between Malaysia and the United States. We affirmed our commitment to positive relations with one another and look forward to meeting in Kuala Lumpur during the ASEAN summit. Or something like that. So that makes me wonder, like, what did they talk about in that conversation that made it so he chose not to share, despite the fact that he's going around sharing conversations with almost every single prime minister along the way, and up until now he hadn't had an official phone call with Donald Trump. Questions.
Well, maybe he will share a little later, once they get the messaging right. I rather wonder if he actually ended up discussing this. Well, that would have been interesting.
Whatever it is, thank you for your hard work for Malaysia. I guess we have a 19% tariff rate right now. So yeah, what do you think, Sepupus? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. That's all to say about that, and bye.